Let's go ahead and talk about concurrent training because I've done a ton of it. So I'll just give you my little experience and then we'll dig into the effects here. So first off, you guys can go find the paper. It's by Coffey and Hawley. Concurrent training, do opposites distract or something like that. I think it's the title. You'll find it. And then of course you should actually read the papers that they cite as well. So don't just like read their paper, actually go through the citations, read those papers as well. The point is that there's clearly an interference effect, but it varies in degree. So that's not to say that you can't do both, it's just that when you do both, you're kind of limiting your capacity in both. And so I'll talk about my training. So a much younger me was determined to become a Navy SEAL. And so my typical day was I would get up in the morning and I would do bodyweight PT, and then I would go for a run, and then I would eat. I'd spend a lot of time eating, and then I would go swim, and then I would eat some more because that's what I did, and then I would go lift. So that was my typical day. So I did bodyweight training, running, swimming, and lifting every day. I was running probably somewhere around 100 to 120 miles a week, which is excessive. I didn't know that at the time. I just was working really hard. And I can tell you that there are better ways to do it. I'm just telling you the truth. This is what I did. And I typically swam probably somewhere around 50 miles a week. I definitely had a few weeks where I was up to about 60 miles when I was getting close to taking my screening test. So that's what I was doing. It's very high volume, and of course the PT sessions were extremely high volume as well. I was doing hundreds and hundreds of push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups, and my lifting was pretty basic though. I just stuck to back squats, snatches, deadlifts, clean and jerk, shoulder press, and weighted pull-ups, because I did pull-ups, but I did weighted pull-ups as well. And that was my lifting schedule. And I trained 7 days a week because when you're young and you're motivated and you're determined to do something, you don't always choose the most intelligent training program. My training program was basically just work harder than everyone else. So I'm not recommending you do this, I'm just telling you the truth, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, I did a triphasic. No, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so I just worked really hard. Point being, okay, so the best I got to was I was running sub 6 minute miles. You know, I could hold a sub 6 minute mile for 4 miles, which was my goal. But in terms of lifting, I was squatting 315 at a body weight of 150 to 155, so you know, roughly a double body weight squat there. And my deadlift topped out at 405. I couldn't break it, and my snatch was stuck at basically a body weight snatch. I'm not going to quibble over, you know, oh, well, it was one time I had a few times where I snatched 160 or 165. It's still basically close to body weight. So, you know, my weight fluctuated a bit from 150 to 155 over the course of that year, and most of the time, you know, my snatch was somewhere around 155. And, you know, don't get me wrong, there were a few times in workouts where I'd hit 160 or 165, but it wasn't like I could consistently hit that. I could consistently hit 155. So, that being said, that's basically the limit I got to on strength though. My strength did not improve while I was doing that. I pretty much just maintained the strength that I had when I first started into it, and that's what you have. Like, it didn't get any better. Later on, so now I'm older, so you would think that things would start going backwards, but once I was no longer doing all that long endurance stuff, you know, my snatch just went up. I mean, it just went up and up and up and up and up, and you know, eventually I was snatching 100 kilos, you know, still at a body weight of 150, that 150 to 155 range. You know, I was snatching 100 kilos, and what was the change? There wasn't really a change. I just simply dropped all the endurance training. You know, that's the big difference. And just like my squat went up. You know, my deadlift went up. You know, I was pulling 455 at a body weight of 150. So, did the endurance training interfere? Obviously. So it's just, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. I'm just, maybe to you that's acceptable to have a 315 squat while running a sub 6 minute mile, holding a subsistence monitor really for 4 miles. I think my best like single mile time was like a 5:20 something, and I'd have to go through my record book to figure out exactly what my best single mile by itself was, but consistently my goal was always to be able to run 4 miles in under 24 minutes, and I was able to do that. So my point being that if you're doing concurrent training, right, there is an interference effect. It's going to limit you on some level, and you're not going to have like an elite powerlifting total while simultaneously being able to run a marathon. Like, it's just not going to happen. I guess we should put a little asterisk here and be like, drugs change everything. But yeah, sure, if you use enough drugs, you can do lots of different things. Of the individuals I know that hit the 666 challenge, right, that's a 600-pound squat, 600-pound deadlift, and a 6-minute mile, I don't know a single one of them who wouldn't openly even admit to you that they were using performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously, I was not using performance-enhancing drugs because I was headed into the Navy, and I was pretty sure they were going to drug test me. So I obviously would not roll that dice. That'd be a quick way to end your career and end all your chances of getting into the Navy if you failed a drug test. That would be very stupid. So in any case, moving forward, what I'm just trying to show to you guys is not that you can't do concurrent training. You certainly can. Just understand that it's going to limit you. You know, whenever I was a track athlete and I wasn't trying to lift heavy and I was completely focused on running track, you know, I was running sub 5-minute miles. I was much faster. I never hit a 4-minute mile. I don't want to ever claim that I hit a 4-minute mile, but I got down pretty low. I thought it was within reach, and probably would have been within reach had I been a little more serious of an athlete at the time. But I wasn't. I was a college student, and well, I did what college kids do, and I didn't take my training that seriously. But I got very close, and so had I actually focused on it, I probably would have got there. But mind you, I also weighed 110 pounds. That makes a big difference too. I was 110 pounds, and so when you don't weigh much, you can run very fast. As your weight goes up, you slow down. That's why no one over 190 pounds has ever run a 4-minute mile. It's not going to happen, even with drugs, because at a certain point you just have too much ass to haul, and that's the reality. So in any case, moving forward, you know, so I was faster when I focused on track only, and then whenever I was lifting and trying to do both, I obviously lost speed. I ran slower, and I got bigger, so keep that in mind. But I ran slower, and you know, my strength was not anything to write home about. I don't think anyone's impressed by a double body weight back squat. It's not like elite or anything. I mean, it's okay. You know, obviously you've been training for some time, but it's not like that's going to be some powerlifting record or something. And especially not when you weigh 150. And moving forward from that, you know, like I said, once I removed the endurance training, you know, my strength went through the roof because I am no longer driving myself into the ground and needing to recover from that, as well as the fact that there's the interference effect is gone. So, and the same thing happened when I did MMA, right? When I did MMA, I was doing all this road work and I was lifting, and you know, again, it's very similar. There's an interference effect. So I wasn't, like, I'm not a power lifter and I am not a weightlifter. I don't compete in powerlifting. I don't compete in weightlifting, like, unless it's just like screwing around and I do some local meet just for fun. But like, I don't take it seriously. I'm not trying to set a record or anything. And so, you know, as an MMA fighter, I was doing plenty of road work, I was doing all this sparring, I was doing all this other training, and there certainly is an interference effect. When I take those things out and I focus on nothing but lifting, yeah, my strength goes way up. Way up compared to where I am, not way up in the sense of, like, you know, now I'm elite class. And that's all I want to express here, is that you can do both, but you have to just be realistic and understand that by doing both, you're going to limit yourself to a degree where you're not going to become the most you could, you're not going to get the strongest you could possibly be or the fastest you could possibly be when you're doing both. And that's all that people need to understand.